Hello, and welcome to another episode of FieldMade's D2C Inspiration Series, where we're partnering up with experts to talk to the founders and marketers of leading brands. I'm Tina. I lead marketing at FieldMade, and we're a Shopify agency that specializes in custom development and design, conversion rate optimization, and Klaviyo email and SMS marketing. Today with me, I have Gorgeous and Eli from the popular brand OLIPOP. And we're going to be talking about customer experience, customer service, and support, why those things matter for building retention for your brand. So I'm super excited to have Eli, who is super well known for this across the internet, and obviously Gorgeous here to help lead that conversation. So I'm going to pass things over for them to dive into the Q&A for today.
Awesome. Really excited to be joined here today with Eli, who is the Director of Customer Experience with our friends at OLIPOP, which is an amazing beverage company that you're going to learn a lot more about today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, so I'll be your host today. I'm Chris Lavoie. I run tech partnerships at Gorgeous. And today we're just going to get to know OLIPOP a little bit more and learn from the expert, Eli himself. And we're going to ask him a few questions, which is really meant to help brands in the space understand how they can be leveraging both SMS and customer support help desks by themselves, but also understanding the power of them combined. So I'm just going to start off nice and light. So Eli, can you tell us who you are, who you work for, and what you do?
Yes, my name is Eli Weiss. I am the Director of Customer Experience at OLIPOP. OLIPOP is a new kind of soda, kind of like the soda 2.0. It's a soda with 9 grams of plant fiber in every can, as well as prebiotics and botanicals. So it's essentially the same kind of nostalgic flavors you grew up with, but instead of 39 grams of sugar, it's 2 to 5 grams of sugar and a bunch of healthy, fun stuff.
Love it. And how would you describe OLIPOP to your friends? I know you just gave a pretty good description, but how would you describe it to some of your friends trying to convince them to try it out?
Yeah, I think that I think this comes up pretty often. Most of my friends growing up were all the traditional soda drinkers. We drank a whole lot of soda growing up in Jersey. So I kind of pitch it as a healthier take on what you're used to. And I think that people are kind of under the impression that if you drink a can of soda, that's your sugar content for the day or the week. And there's kind of no added benefit. So OLIPOP is just a healthier take and actually does good for you. So
awesome. Cool. And I guess before we jump into the questions about our platforms, can you tell us a little bit about the motivation for how OLIPOP was actually founded? What was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, so we've kind of been looking at the functional beverage set for quite some years, and we came to a point where we're realizing that hunter-gatherers had 150 grams of fiber, and currently today people are hardly having any. We sought to change that space, and kind of we were looking for a vehicle that's something fun, something people enjoy to drink, and doing a healthier take on it, and that's kind of where soda came in. So Ben, who's the co-founder and CEO and / formulator, has been in this space for 10 to 15 years. Worked on the kombucha side of things. Fell in love with the microbiome and prebiotics, and that's kind of how OLIPOP became.
Awesome. And then the last question for you is how did you get involved? What was your story for joining the OLIPOP rocket ship?
Yeah, so I've always kind of worked at really small startups. OLIPOP is actually the largest company I've been at, so I've always been on very small teams, been a generalist all along, done pretty much everything at startups other than finance. So essentially, I was obsessed with customer experience and leveraging experience as a marketing tool. I think that historically, customer experience, customer service, customer support, whatever you want to call it, has always been the first thing that's outsourced. And the thing that's always like a very, instead of proactive, it was always a reactive tool as to like, how do we put out this fire when it comes to like, all of our shipments are delayed. How do we put this fire out versus like, how can we use this to leverage it and create a better experience for customers that essentially makes people talk about your brand. And I had this theory for quite some time, and I was kind of looking for a brand that would buy into it. As an operator, you're always looking for a brand that kind of aligns with what you're looking to do and gives you the space to do it, and B, the backing behind it as to like, this is your idea, we're behind it, go run with it. And Olipop was that kind of conversation. Number one with them was like, we love the way you think about this stuff. We're looking for people that are obsessive with what they do and and kind of take it and run with it. And I've never been at a company that gave me kind of the leeway to whether it's like spending the money on a bet, for example, like sending 65 snake plants. It was just like something to me. I was like, the amount of money that brands are spending on Facebook ads is like, just give me a tiny little bit of that, and let's see what kind of magic we can make. And we've continuously done that. So that's kind of why I hopped in. Other than the product, I think is fantastic, but yeah.
Great. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, any of the brands that are going to be watching this are going to be saying they need their own Eli on their team. And I think that's absolutely true. And so with that, we're going to jump right into this. So Eli, can you tell us what led you to Gorgias, and did you use a different help desk previously? What were some of the key factors in deciding to use Gorgias for your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I've worked with a bunch of different platforms in the past, the Zendesks and Freshdesks and Front and a couple of others. And essentially, my biggest frustration with the current platforms out there was that it felt very much like a ticket. And the second you get a ticket number, you're already a mile away from feeling a personal connection to the brand. You're feeling like you're just a ticket to be resolved. So mission number one, when looking for a help desk, was like, can we find something that has the same back end as those larger legacy brands have, but obviously have a front end that feels like you're getting an email from a person. So that was number one. Number two was like, when we look at a typical online store, you're dealing with quite a few integrations, and thinking, can we find a platform that integrated with all of those? So for us, it's, we're on Shopify Plus, and we're talking about, we have a lot of subscription customers. So you're looking at recharge, and you're looking at all the kind of tools in the tool set, and looking for a kind of a one spot to do everything. And that was kind of how we came upon Gorgias. For me, right off the bat, was the ability to make like order changes and swap an address and refund an order and cancel subscription. To be able to do that all in one spot was like, that already sold me. And then essentially, we're always looking to, as we grow, like you want to scale the personalization that you do when you have 4 customers. You want to scale that when you have 400,000 customers. So thinking like macros and rules, all those things that you can use to kind of really, really personalize as you continue to grow. That's kind of what we were looking for as a foundational step.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we know that Olipop has increased their macro usage by actually 600% from the first 60 days you were using Gorgias to the last 60 days. So I think that speaks to the pursuit that Olipop is on, and maintaining that level of personalization as you scale, which is fantastic. And the next question for you, Eli, you described, the beautiful benefits of using Gorgias. Can you tell us a little bit about the challenges that leveraging helps you and Olipop solve?
Yeah, that's a good question. Probably 4x the amount of tickets we've gotten recently. So thinking through like, okay, how can we sustainably respond? And then again, kind of back to what I said before, it's like using macros, but also figuring out a way to make it feel personal has been like a really, really, really big focus for us. So when a customer gets back that response that is a macro on our end, they really feel like we typed out that whole message, whether it's like just the variables on the name or the order number. All those little things have a massive impact for a customer. And I think on the brand side, we often convince ourselves that like, oh, there's no way people will notice. It's like a canned response, but they always do. So it's like thinking through how do we really, really, really get serious about making sure that people feel like we're talking to them.
The holy grail really of modern CX is a perfect balance of like speed and automation and personalization, right? And the more you double down on one, it's like a teeter totter. It impacts the other. So Olipop is a great case study on how you can still achieve both, that is speed and personalization. It's certainly not easy to do as you scale, and that's why it's so important to have the value of being able to reply. Certainly pre-sale, we have great data. Responding to a pre-sale SMS within 10 minutes can drive conversions through the roof. We know that. But that's what we've come to expect as modern consumers. Certainly I have. I'm only 7 months into the e-commerce world. It's like now when I notice websites that have, not super stellar user experiences, it's just a huge turnoff, right? So the next question for you, Eli, is can you tell us about your experience building up your CX channel using Gorgias? How long did it take? What was the experience like working with our team? And how many agents are using Gorgias currently with the OLIPOP team?
Yeah. So I'd say that going into it with all the kind of bells and whistles, you'd expect it to be a harder lift. Like you'd expect it to take a whole bunch of time to set up, but it actually didn't take us too long. Throughout the whole process, we've had pretty fantastic support on like any random question we had about like how do these automations work? What are, like a lot of brands kind of over-index on these macros, and you create a macro for a response that comes in once a month. So like, how do we kind of keep that middle ground? It's been kind of smooth sailing setting it up. At this point, when I joined about a year ago, there was, I think I was employee number 2 on CX, and we now are 4. So we've been building, we've been growing, and it's been pretty impactful. I think bringing new people on the team. You always think about, okay, there are so many different platforms we use. How do we catch people up quickly? But with kind of all the integrations on Gorgias, it's just a quick walkthrough, and they're all caught up. So it's been pretty phenomenal.
So how is your team measuring success with Gorgias? What are some key metrics and KPIs that you're tracking? And is there any specific examples of results that you've obtained using Gorgias that you'd like to highlight?
Yeah. I think over the last couple of years, in CX, you always think about how do you send the most perfect message, and sometimes optimize for the perfect response versus the quicker response. And something I've tracked over the last couple of years is that regardless of the perfection of the message, sending a more human message in a quicker time frame often yields a much higher response, both in terms of the data around like your CES score or whatever it may be, and the actual just the response you'll get back. So since joining Gorgias, and hopping in there and growing, our D2C has gone from 5% of our business to 35% of our business, and grown 4x over the last year. And I think with all of that, our inbox is flooded, with the increase in sales. So being able to keep that first response time to between 30 and 60 minutes has been, obviously during business hours, has been like super instrumental in keeping our CES score in the 90s. And we've massively reduced churn by almost 70%. So being able to reply to these people in record time, being able to fix, and I think the other thing I'd add is that there's this, there's a bunch of cliches around CX, and one of them is surprise and delight as like, just a term that gets tossed around very often. But I think it's on a very, very low level, surprise and delight is people reading your message and being, wow, what the hell? And that's like, that for us is like, we want people to read that message like, oh, I didn't love this product. And you just said that in a comment on Facebook or on Twitter, and 5 minutes later you have a refund in your account. So that's kind of like, for us, these are moments that if we didn't have Gorgias, we wouldn't be able to kind of track that with a Facebook integration. Like someone comments something on Facebook, we can see their order on Shopify. We click refund, we reply on Facebook, and it's all done in 30 seconds. Yeah. Before an integration and a really powerful tool like Gorgias, that wasn't possible.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And then looking forward, what opportunities do you see for expanding the use cases you're already tackling right now with Gorgias? I'm not putting you on the spot here, but is there any, you're obviously full of great ideas. Is there any use cases or ideas that you have in the future that would really take this integration partnership to the next level?
Um,
We can certainly table that and come back to it. I know that's putting you on the spot.
No. I like on the spot. Let me think. We're beyond excited with the upcoming integrations on like the DMs and Twitter integrations, all these other fun stuff to continuously be able to keep our communications in one core channel. I think the future of all of this is being able to have more abilities in the same core space. That's been something that we talk about a lot and is super exciting. If we can open one Chrome tab and do everything in one spot.
That's the holy grail. Absolutely.
Yep.
And then two final questions, and then we'll let you off. Can you tell us about how do you see OLIPOP's journey in terms of national growth, in 2021 and beyond? And then how would you say Gorgias fit into OLIPOP's growth plan?
Yeah, I like that question. I think that before the middle of 2020, OLIPOP was a retail first brand, and direct to consumer was something started because like we're not in every store yet. We want to give people the ability to buy online and sample so that when we get to a retail location near them, they know they love us. When, in the middle of 2020, when COVID kind of hit really hard and people were going out less and shopping in stores less, direct to consumer became a larger bucket for us. And we've kind of doubled down like in marketing, you double down with what works. And we've kind of really, really grown massively on direct to consumer. And now we think about, we often talk about a flywheel between what goes on in retail and what goes on direct to consumer both ways. Whereas if somebody has like a fantastic experience on our D2C side, when they hop into a Whole Foods, a Kroger, or a Sprouts, and they see OLIPOP, they say, oh God, I love that brand. Let me grab a can there. And then vice versa, where they find a can at Whole Foods, try it, and then scroll through Instagram, see someone talking about OLIPOP and feel that close connection, see that we have a limited SKU available online and hop in and buy that. So I think that's kind of like our connection between retail and direct to consumer. As direct to consumer continues growing massively, we think about how can we create moments when you're going direct to consumer. The beauty of direct to consumer is you're connecting with customers directly versus like being in the shelf they walk by. And we always talk about the moments that we create. Some of them are pretty simple, and some of them are really, really deep moments. Like, for us, like something that this is a week or two ago, we had a customer that ordered OLIPOP for their wedding. This was like a pretty wild story, because for somebody to order OLIPOP at their wedding, they're obviously a big OLIPOP fan, and we just had a couple of incidents with the delivery with our partners that we had to deliver 3 times to get every single case with the correct flavor to the correct place. And kind of, you think about that, and when that happens on the brand side, you're like, oh, okay, like we'll refund them whatever %, or we'll send them an apology if you're lucky. And being able to, like my team was able to somehow figure out this couple's wedding registry, and we went on and we ordered them a really kind gift as an apology. So these for us, these are moments on direct consumer that are pretty incredible and make enough noise to be able to drive on both sides of the coin. So that on my end is super exciting. And honestly, I don't even know if I answered your question or if I just went on a full ramble there.
You definitely did, and then some. And I think I have, I'm engaged right now. I have a wedding next summer. I'm not sure. Cool. And then last question, and we do appreciate your time, is what would be your biggest advice to other brands in the space who are considering using Gorgias and Postscript?
Yeah. This is my favorite question, because I see a lot of brands go direct to consumer and just go straight for sales and just continue pushing Facebook ads and not being super intentional with these super powerful tools. So a couple of points. I think number one is being thoughtful with the tools you use. Very often people just get excited, add 17 tools to their toolbox, go crazy, and then realize they're never fully optimizing and using them to the full capability. So being thoughtful with what, looking into what the tools offer, making sure it can do wonders for your business. I think the second thing I'd say is be very intentional with the messaging you put out. And brands often go for that right hook very often on. Thinking of like what are jabs that can make and create a longer relationship versus short-term financial gain. We see that in direct consumer, and I tweeted about this the other day, and it got more traction than it should have. But the amount of brands that have these constant sales, and obviously it impacts what you feel about the value of the product, but also being very intentional with what you're putting out, and working with companies that understand that intentionality as well as you do. And then the other thing I'd say is hiring is probably the hardest part of all of this. So being very, very careful with hiring people that have the same ideas that you do and are willing, and giving them the space to run with it, is something that I see very often. You can have the best tools in the business, but not empower your team to use them properly. So with Gorgias, I think we've done things differently, that paid off very well for us. But most legacy brands or direct consumer brands that are stuck in a box will optimize for example, using PostScript just to sling sales versus using PostScript to connect much more deeply with customers, and using Gorgias as a tool to just turn everything automated and not add the human touch to it. So getting the perfect tools is step one. Setting them up perfectly, using the right people, or working with the right people to set them up perfectly, and then keep that humanity inside of it, as we get closer to robots.
No, I don't know if we can end any better than that. That's great. I definitely advise everybody to follow Eli on Twitter. I think it's Eli Weiss, with 3 S's at the end.
That's correct.
Fantastic.
We're still fighting. We're still fighting to get the Eli Weiss with 2 S's.
Whoever has it needs to. Don't want to take up any more of everybody's time. Thank you so much again, Eli, for representing OLIPOP and being such a champion for Gorgias. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome. These were such great insights and so many great takeaways for other founders and marketers to learn how to improve their customer experience this year. Thank you so much for taking the time. Before we wrap things up, though, I just want to let everyone know that we have an ebook available to download that features all of the brands that we've been talking to throughout this series. It dives into stories, tactics, metrics, and so much more than what we're even talking about during these conversations. So I'll link to it in the comments. It's free to download. And of course, it'll feature Eli from this conversation there today. So download it, and we'll see you at our next episode.